Hi, everyone. I'm going to start. So, how was your first menstruation? I'm sure everyone remembers their first brown stain. I was 13 when I first menstruated, and I was isolated in a dark room for 4 days. I wasn't allowed to interact with men, not even my father, and that was the first time a rigid set of do's and don'ts were introduced in my life. So from then on, every time I menstruated, I wasn't allowed to enter the kitchen or the prayer room where gods were kept. Basically, I was labeled impure, and anything that was thought of as pure was forbidden. Eventually, as I moved out of my home, I pushed back, and once I started working, I refused all menstrual restrictions. That's when I joined Possible, an organization that improves healthcare for underserved communities in Nepal. So to work at Possible, I had to move from Kathmandu, the capital city of Nepal, all the way to Acham, a place in far western Nepal. So Acham is a place where a decade-long civil war had started in 1996, but even today, 50% of its population lives under the poverty line, and 50% of its women have not attended schools. So it was in Acham that I saw an extreme version of the same menstrual restrictions. Here, when on periods, women stay in sheds, a practice known as chaupadi. A lot of women have actually died in these sheds. In freezing winters, women light small fires to keep themselves warm, but without proper ventilation in the sheds, they sometimes inhale smoke and die of suffocation. And the situation is not better even in summers, where women die of snake bites or animal attacks. And it's not limited to the sheds. Menstruating women are not allowed to use the same bath as the rest of the community or use the same toilet as the rest of their family. So while practicing menstrual restrictions in Nepal, a woman actually ends up spending 7 years of her life being labeled impure, 7 years of her life being treated as an untouchable, and 7 years of her lives in the sheds. So earlier last year, we started a one-by-one campaign to support women to let go of chaupadi. Today, I want to share some experiences and stories highlighting key areas that can support dignified menstruation. So first and foremost, it boils down to individual choice. A colleague, Urmila, she migrated to Acham after she got married. The first few times she menstruated, she had to stay in a shed. She felt these sheds were cold, claustrophobic, and cramped, so she decided to keep her periods a secret from the rest of her family, because it was believed that failing to practice the restrictions would bring in bad luck. Once Urmila started to enjoy living a normal life during her periods, she took a bold stance. But there are not many women like Urmila in Nepal. Another key area that I want to highlight is how very often menstrual restrictions is thought of as women's only issue. If we are to overcome this crime of gender-based violence, it has to be a collective effort. My colleague Dharma is taking an initiative against chaupadi. He's inviting all menstruating women who don't wish to go to the sheds to stay at his home. He's being ridiculed for taking up a women's issue, but his voice is causing a ripple in the movement. There's so much more work for us to do. More than 16 women have died in the sheds already, and chaupadi continues to be the biggest driver of mortality for adolescents. Last year, our female parliamentarians lobbied for forceful chaupadi to be criminalized, but there's only so much a law can do. Juma, a teenager in Acham, does not like going to the sheds, but she's reluctant to file a case against her family. Without a proper support system, women like Juma are unable to use the law. So the change through one-by-one campaign is very slow, but things seem to be looking different for the next generation. Another colleague, Lalita's daughter, menstruated for the first time last year, and bombarded with these set of restrictions and untouchability rules, she simply refused to stay in the shed. So today, irrespective of the time of her month, she stays at home. My colleague Lalita is deeply disturbed by her daughter's decision, but change does not happen overnight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Subeksha,
Thank you.
for talking about such an important issue that in one way or another affect every girl and woman.
Yeah.
And thank you for changing the situation for women and girls in your country. So going forward, how will you continue using your power? How will you use your power for good?
So I think even from One by One campaign, what seems to really help is these personal conversations. It doesn't help for an outsider to come and, impose a certain ideas. What really helps is having a personal connection with the women and bringing about a change in that way. So I feel I'm going to use my power to engage in many more conversations with women, men, and all other genders so that we're in an equal footing and menstruation or your biological gender is never a barrier for opportunities.
Thank you, and good
Thank
luck
you.
with your work. And I
Thank you so
hope
much.
that you will find many people here who can support you in one way or another.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing with us.